It's a farm journal for December 20th, 2019. Well, welcome to the Serene Disciple Project in Egret Isle Farm on a cold, windy day in December. So we are week 3, and I think the final week on this creative endeavor project. Here is the knife as it currently exists. We've got almost a mirror finish on the blade, and it's got a pretty good edge to it. We'll save final sharpening till later. So we're going to focus on this end of it this week. And our goal this week is to put a wooden handle on it. And then I think we'll call it done. You want to come along and join me? Come on, let's do this. I've used this knife to talk about both the concepts of a beginner's mind and being a lifelong student, but really it's just all about flexibility of mind and soul. Now, if you haven't watched the first 2 videos in this series, I invite you to click the links below in the description section and take a look at those. And while you're there, go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Okay, all done with the basic grinding and sanding, the basic shaping. Looks like a kitchen knife. But there's only so much you can do with machines. We've taken everything down to a sandpaper grit of 1,000, but now comes the most labor-intensive part of the process, and that's the hand sanding. Let's get started. So really, what this is all about is retaining, or maybe regaining, my capacity to grow. And growth is change. To allow change in what I believe, how I see the world and the other people in it, and even, or especially, how I see God, how I relate to God. In one of my favorite books, My Bright Abyss by Christian Wyman, he writes, even the staunchest life of faith is a life of great change. And so it follows that if I believe at 50 what I believed at 15, I have not really lived, or I have denied my life. I look for learning curves to climb, like making a knife out of a bar of raw steel, because it keeps me limber mentally and spiritually, better able to climb the more important learning curves that come our way in life, like the challenges that come with marriage and parenting, the learning curve of aging, coming to terms with a narrowing of physical ability and an expanding waistline. Now, the alternative is to balance at the top of the learning curves you've already mastered, to stay inside, safely inside your mental and spiritual comfort zones, and to grow brittle and stiff. And then some storm of life comes along and knocks you down, and rather than springing back resiliently, you break. But how do you start if this is a new idea to you? Well, you start at the beginning. Well, here is where we started a couple of weeks ago, and here is where we end. Now, the knife is not finished, may never be finished. I could keep tinkering with this, try to sort out what isn't quite right about it, and there is a lot that isn't quite right about it, but this is knife number 1. I suspect that knife number 100 will be quite different and probably much better. But for there to be a knife 100, there has to be a knife number 1. I have just begun to climb this learning curve. And so what learning curves are you climbing? What are you doing to grab that beginner's mind, to be a student? I want to challenge you. I want to invite you in this season to find something that captures your imagination but represents a challenge, represents a learning curve, and start climbing. And I also want to invite you along the way to share your number 1, whether it's your first painting or your first poem or your first song or your first whatever. Share your number 1. Keeps us humble. Enjoy your beginner's mind. Something to think about. Well, I think that's enough for today. We'll see you next time. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe, and give.